imagine living there. And he's like, okay, now here's what you have to do. Now keep in mind, I didn't have an offer down on this house at all, no contract. And he says, now you need to create a invitation to your family to come to Christmas dinner at your new home on Whidbey Island. And I start chuckling like that's really funny. And he said, no, I'm serious. If you believe what we teach, this is what you're going to do. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like really pushing some buttons. But I created the invite and I sent it, and they all RSVP. Yeah, but what's this new house on Whidbey Island? You know, like, we'll talk about that later. And now, see, he's so smart. Now I'm in a corner. I've got to make this happen. I've got to do this. And so I got the virtual tour running on my computer. I had it on my iPhone. I had a color book of the house. I kept looking at it and visualizing, imagining myself in that house. I'm not using my positive specialized knowledge. I'm using my imagination and fantasy and feeling it. And what am I doing when I'm doing that? I'm changing the whole vibration I'm in. And all of a sudden I started attracting ideas and resources and ways to do this.
But wait a minute. What you're really doing is you're following direction. No, that's what you're doing. Now, we're going to cover this a couple of different ways tonight. I'm going to have somebody else come up here later on, and we're going to show you how things can happen where they're not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to, but they do happen. Now, you have to ask yourself, why is it that there's such a very small, select group of people that really win? How come? Why are there very brilliant people that lose? Ask yourself these questions. Now, do you see, some of you, well, I've mentioned before, some of you are already very successful, and you may think, you know, you've got there. Well, we haven't got there. It doesn't matter how much you're earning, doesn't matter how well you're doing. There's still another level way beyond wherever you are. Yet every one of us can win by following exactly the same rules. Now, we'll give you examples this evening. The real purpose tonight of the program is just to get your mind loosened up a bit. It would be like working with clay, and you want to get the clay loose so you can start to work with it properly. You don't want it too hard. Because it's only on a rare occasion that you're going to be in an environment like this. This is not a common or a normal environment. You've got people that have come from all different walks of life. They've come from various different parts of the world, and they've all come for the same reason. There's something in here that's attracting them. There's something they're in harmony with. There's something they want to get that's here, and they're not sure what it is. So you're in a magnificent environment here. You can say things to people that if you said it on the street, they'd look at you, they'd think you were crazy. If you said it to your family, they'd say, what are you talking about? Who the hell do you think you are? You can't do that. Come on. Get real. And how often you hear you got to be realistic? You know? Well, you see, the idea, we would normally do this just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But I said, no, let's do it Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And tonight, what we really want to do is get you to stop and really think. Get rid of some of the jazz that's been going on in your mind for the past few days and really start thinking. Because I've watched this happen. Now, it happened with Sandy. She ended up, to our benefit, as a partner in the company. But there's other people here that similar results, some even beyond what Sandy's accomplished, but she accomplished it, they accomplished it by following many of these rules. You see, when I started, the man who gave me this book, Think and Grow Rich, he said, if you do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Well, I really didn't believe that. And even if I had never done exactly what I was told. In fact, I did the exact opposite usually of what I was told. But I didn't believe it, but I had the idea that I thought he believes it. And I started to do what he said. And like that, things started to happen. Now, I went a long time, and it was, while I was in England, I really started to think, how is this all happening? And I didn't have any trouble getting into fantasy because that's where I was spending my time anyway. I always lived in a fantasy world. I never lived in the real world, and that caused a lot of problems for me everywhere I went, because they tell me to wake up. You're stupid. Quit thinking that way. You can't do that. You see? Then, what Einstein's saying here, I mean, he was one of the brightest guys that ever walked on the planet. I think it's pretty good advice for us to follow. And that's pretty well along the line this program goes. Now, we get into the next part here. Why is gold creation an art? Now, we had that flashed in the film, but we'll take another look at it, because it does get interesting.
This is really interesting. Think of it this way. The art of goal creation is truly a creative process. The definition of creation is the manipulation of energy. You're causing one type of energy to move to another type of energy. How many of you thought of goals in that way before this moment? Before that seminar, I never would have thought of as goal creation as a creative process. In the thought of manipulation of energy, what does that mean, to manipulate energy? And how do we move energy from one form to another? How many of you have boiled a kettle of water? Everybody in the room. So you have manipulated energy. You have moved energy from one form to another. You have the water in the kettle, you place the heat underneath it, it turns into steam, and if you keep it going, it turns into ether, and you have a burnt kettle. It disappears into no thing, and you can't even see it. Well, what we want to do is the reverse of that. We want to take the no thing and turn it into something physical in our world.
Well,
Really?
Sandy, the truth is everybody's already doing it. You're already doing this. You usually do it on a scale that is very understandable, and you don't really think of it the way you're doing it. But you see, we start with nothing, and we create something. This hotel was nothing but an idea in somebody's mind at one time. The decor in the hotel, it was nothing but an idea in someone's mind at one time. The suit that you're wearing or the ring on your hand, nothing but an idea in somebody's mind. How did it become a suit or a ring? How about your house? How about everything that's in the house? Everything, the house itself, was nothing but an idea. Well, you see, the beautiful truth is you can think and you can take ideas and you can turn them into physical form. You're causing one type of energy to move to another type of energy. If nothing's created or destroyed, that's the only way it could happen. There is no other way. All science and all theology make that very clear. Nothing's created or destroyed.
And here's an important point, is this energy may never have moved into that direction until you came along. It might never have moved in that direction. Think about that. When I was in that seminar, I came up with a goal because Bob kept saying, what do you want? What do you really want? And, at this point, my imagination's running wild, and I'm sitting there physically, but I'm mentally in boardrooms and executive offices that I'd been in for the last 2 decades at that time. And I just was like, I want to package this information, and I want this in the boardrooms and the executive offices, and I want to create a program with him. And I could have left that idea in that seminar room, but I fell in love with that idea. And then I manipulated the energies, used the creative process to create it. What idea do you have that you want to bring into form? That's what you want to really get in touch with here.
When, like, Sandy told me later on, when she was there thinking that, now there was a quick switch. Here you go from the very analytical, legal individual. You start fantasizing. You see somebody doing something, you think, I want to do what he's doing. This is way out of the box for a securities attorney. There must have been something inside her that started moving. She must have been in harmony with that concept, or she wouldn't have felt that way about it. However, when you went to write it out, what did you do?
Well, we had this little workbook, and I opened the workbook, and, Bob kept saying, what do you want? What do you really want? Because when this idea first came to my mind, I just let it go. I did not grab onto it. And Bob kept talking, and he said, most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. He was quoting Earl Nightingale. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And then he said, for most people, when their heart stops beating, it'll be a mere formality. And I thought, And then he quoted Bill Gove. And Bill Gove was like the Frank Sinatra of public speakers. And he quoted Bill Gove saying, if I want to be free, I got to be me. Not the me you think I should be. Not the me I think my spouse thinks I should be. Not the me I think my kids think I should be. If I want to be free, I got to be me, and I better know who me is. And it was like this bucket of ice got dumped on my head. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there's something more that I want to do. And I started to fall in love with this idea. Something inside of me was really jazzed and coming alive. And so I opened the book and I wrote down in teeny tiny print, I want to be in the inner circle of this company.
No. Hold on a minute. She wrote it in little tiny print. What would cause a person to do that? That's a self-image. See, the image she was holding wouldn't permit her to see herself doing this. And when she did, there was an enormous conflict in her mind. She sees herself as a securities attorney. And here she is now, going to do what I'm doing, which was a long ways removed from what she was doing. So she wrote it, but in very, very small writing in the corner of a page. She really didn't believe it could happen. Now, the paradigm's trying to stop her, but the desire is trying to push the paradigm out. That's going to happen to people here in this room. I guarantee it'll happen. Maybe happening to somebody now. But it will definitely happen. Because something is in you wants to express itself in a greater way, and you're not letting it out. There's some of you see yourself in positions where you can earn all kinds of money, and you may be broke. And the paradigm saying you can't do that. And so you're going to have this argument going inside. Just like Sandy did, to cause her to write it very small so that nobody could see it, and then cover it up with another sheet. I'm going to give you a couple of more examples before the evening's over. What we want to do, as I say tonight, I want to get your mind to a point where you think, well, maybe this isn't too crazy. Maybe this guy has got it figured out, the process. Well, I have. I really have. You see, I sat down with one of these one day, and I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. Well, we're talking to you, and you're all over the world. You see, you are the streamer. You're the one that's permitting us to bring this right into your home, into your office, onto your laptop, maybe in your car, from 111 different countries just before we started. So do you see, I had no idea how that was going to happen. I only knew it was going to happen. And that's the way it works. You won't know how it's going to happen. Hillary did not know how to get to the top of the mountain until after he got there. Ford didn't know how to build a V8 engine till after they built it. Yet you're not going to know how to execute your dream until after you execute it. So do you see, you got to go where you've never been. Now, that's sort of scary and exciting all at the same time. But we're using examples that are real here.
Goal creation involves certain progressive steps in the energetic process. Some of the steps require the use of your higher mental faculties. So there's certain steps that you have to take in order to manipulate the energy to create what you want. And if you miss a step, nothing's going to happen. So think about that. Think about what it is that you want. What did you come here to this seminar for? Like, get out a pad of paper, if you will, and write down what you think you came here for, what you think it is that you want to create.
If you have to leave, they're going to give these out later. Okay. That's your environment. For you. Thank you.
And streamers, make sure you do this too. Write down what you think you want to create here. And as you're writing this down, start to get emotionally involved with the idea. How would you feel that this has already happened? Imagine something that could only happen after this has happened. And how would you feel? And what we're going to do is come back throughout the weekend and keep looking at this and expanding on it. But I want you to think about that, and then think about the fact that we're talking about progressive steps in the energetic process. And that we have to tap into our mental faculties. So what I mean there, what are our mental faculties? Perception, will, the reason, imagination, intuition, memory. We've talked about imagination. In that seminar, Bob had my imagination going like crazy. And that's why I came up with these goals. Be in the inner circle of this company. Be Bob Proctor's closest advisor. Create a program with him to bring into these companies. And then I write it in teeny tiny print because it was so far removed from what I thought I could do. But if you listen to this, if you follow the progressive steps, if you understand how to manipulate the energetic process, you know you can create anything you want. So I slammed the book shut. I didn't want anybody at my table to see it. I definitely didn't share it with anybody at the table. And it was smaller print than I've ever written because I didn't even want to see it. And then what happened when I slammed the book shut? My mind's just telling me all the reasons I can't do it, how ridiculous it is. I mean, who are you? You're this corporate attorney. Bob Proctor, I mean, he's been in this industry for 57 years now. And he has an incredible team. How am I going to be in the inner circle of this team? And your mind just starts going and going. But I kept coming back to falling in love with the idea and to opening my mind to understanding how to work with the creative process.
Well, if you're going to work with the creative process, you have to understand yourself. So you're going to see this program is broken into different parts. And we are part of the animal world, but there's no one on the planet, so far as we know, like us. We have been gifted with higher faculties. Now, you can go by what you see, hear, smell, taste, touch. That gets you in touch with your material world. And as long as you live in a physical body and correspond with the material world, you're going to be using those sensory factors. If you're going to execute the talents that you've been gifted with at birth, you're going to have to get in and understand the higher side of your own personality. We have a young man, Scott Edwards, that works in the studio with me. He's from Manchester in England. In fact, he's in the back of the room here running this tonight, this streaming. And when I told him that we were writing this, He said, is perception going to be a part of it? I thought about it, and I thought, the whole thing's based on perception. See, perception is one of our higher faculties.